Good evening. This is Father Joseph Swaden. For those who don't know, I'm the founder and lead person on NFTU, True Orthodox and Ecumenical News, which has been available uh, since 2004 and on YouTube since 2018 or so. As you can see, I'm not in my usual kind of setup here. This is kind of a phone setup. Um, Honestly, I was expecting Bishop Enoch and Sava to talk about the old believer schism. I do see your comments, Nikolai and Ortho Just. Look, I respect your opinion. I genuinely do. Um, but I don't share it. God bless you, Zelotes. The simple reality is that I feel like this kind of wasn't a show I wanted to do to begin with. I'm probably going to delete this. I do not find the old believer schism a compelling schism. I don't find it a compelling topic. I think anyone who does even marginal studies of histories would agree that it was a really weird and almost borderline. I wouldn't say it was obviously internally a Russian schism, but it was really, I hate to say it, but unhealthy Russian nationalism towards ritual. Um, Thank you, Zolotas, for that. I really appreciate helping keep the lights on. Um, so until we get someone who shows up, I'm probably not going to be. Okay, let me see. Oh, I'm not enthusiastic about it. I just find it interesting. Well, the problem is that there are too many people who get enthusiastic about awful topics. And no offense, it's an awful topic. The schism was horrible. There were deaths on both sides. They didn't side with the Holy Tsar and help the communists. Um, but sure, they have pretty chant. Okay, great. I don't. My point is that this was not my choice of topic, especially not today. There's a whole bunch of buzz around William Albrecht, whose debates with me have been deleted from Reason and Theology, um, that I would have much rather talked about than this. And so the simple reality, it's an arcane topic. It requires study to learn the ins and outs of it. But when you're done with all that study, you realize it's a schism, and in some ways heretical, and oftentimes it would become heretical. So yeah, um, but it was suggested to me to have Sava on, and Vladika Enoch was interested in the topic. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not. I mean, I don't want to spend my time warring against the Russian Amish. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's a no, no, I don't believe it's growing massively. If it is, hold on. Let me see here. Nikolai says it is horrible that the old believer stuff is growing massively due to the English language parishes. It needs to be addressed, unfortunately. I don't know a single English language old right parish in America. I don't. I think that's garbage. What I think it's growing on Discord is what I think is happening. People are confusing Discord with reality. There are no mounds of old believer parishes all over the place. If there are, please show them to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have not touched enough grass to know whether or not there are old believer parishes growing up all around me. I live in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, where there are probably the only place that has more Russian Orthodox domes on it is Alaska. And I ain't seen no old believers around here. I've seen Mennonites, I've seen Amish, I've seen, I've seen your extremist level type religion type here. There's none of that going on here. This is the same thing I heard when I was in Russia. People would talk about how the old believers were present everywhere. You barely found them. What you found was people listening to old right music CDs and saying, "Well, I think I'm an old believer because it's cool." Um, there's one in Oregon. Okay, that's big. I agree. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. We definitely have to do that. There are four in the Rocor MP alone. I'm sorry to say this, but if they're in the Rocor MP, They're not old believers. They're Rokor MP. They're just using the old right. Let me see. 10K in Oregon, 5K in Alaska, 100 plus in Washington, and 500 plus in Plamondon. What's Plamondon? That's not even a real town. It doesn't sound like Alberta. Oh, okay. Okay, so that's Canada. Well, that doesn't count. Um, I'm sorry. I just insulted a bunch of Canadians. I apologize. Um, the point is that it's not like we're talking like even if you add that together, that's not actually that big, and I feel like it's inflated. Okay, that's where I'm from. Okay, well, all right. So I can see why it would look bigger to you, and that does make sense. But there is the question about old right parishes in English. Yeah, I mean something about I don't see that. That sounds like Roquefort MP because I know that the old right parishes in English in Pennsylvania and Erie can use both, but they generally don't. Was about okay. Let me see. We got any guests yet? Nope, nope. Still just me. Everyone who had a massive interest and did studies and wanted to talk about it all day um, didn't show up. It's just me and talking about something that I feel bad. I know that there's a number. I do know there are a number of supposed old right believers in the U.S. And I'm sure that if I almost take them seriously if they're Russian. And that's going to sound awful. I believe that there are lots of old right Russians, and if many of them moved over here for whatever reasons, like the Mennonites or the Amish. I almost said the Irish. Anyway, the point is that if they're historically that's part of who they are, I get it. Okay, I get that. But if it's the people who are like, well, what's the difference between the old calendarists and the old believers? Yeah, I don't care about them. I don't care about everyone who threatens to become an old ritualist. I don't care about people who make up stuff because they want to emotionally manipulate others. Father bless, God bless you in the name of the Father, and the Holy Spirit. I don't care about that. Let me see here. This is the Alaska Old Believer Parish before joining Rokor MP was about to accept English, but then they joined Rokor MP. Anyway, that's my point. If that's the case, then what are we? Why are we doing the old right thing? Why are we LARPing as if we're relitigating 1667 and the council? The Stoglov Council and the later councils and Patriarch Nikon, etc. Like, why are we LARPing? Stop LARPing. Because if we are talking about that, we are talking about history. If we want to talk about history, I'm down with it. But I don't think anyone really wants to talk about history. What they're talking? Oh, good Lord, thank you. Hold on one moment. Hi, Sava.
Hello, Father. Sorry, I thought when you said 7:30 it was for local time since we're in different time zones, so I apologize for being late. I am so very sorry. Um,
It's
Hello.
okay. I've spent the past stream just railing at the entire topic idea because I find all of it distasteful unless you're dealing with actual Russian people and not LARPing as Mr. Most ethnically orthodox, even though my name's Jefferson. I don't here. Let me see here. Despite their bishops having to fight the synod to have that be a possibility. Okay, well, okay. They don't understand anyway. Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Father. They don't. That's why the Alaskans wanted English so bad. I mean, that's just, but in the end, that's all part of the whole thing. It's like it's part of the I hate to say it, but like, and this is again a position that people may not like. Um, but you know, old, the whole obsession with old believers among people is just a russified version of trad living. It's the ideal. The same way that your average American Protestant looks at the Mennonites and the Amish as some sort of perfect trad goal. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Like, you want to talk about using the old believer services in English? You could, but then they're also using the old orthography. They're also using the yacht. They're also using, it gets to the point where it's just ridiculous. It's actually the reason initially, funnily enough, for the Alaskan, because it's super Russian. That's the reason. That seems insane. Um, okay,
Okay.
I'll stop talking.
Yes, I know you don't like this subject, Father. Um,
No,
I
I will say I despise it here on screen. I do. I really despise this topic. I don't mind the people. I despise the topic.
okay. Well, I put together like a little presentation. We're going to talk about the old ritualists a little bit. Um, well, okay, well, he's not here. I'm sure Father already introduced the show. For people that watch this channel frequently, you probably know who I am. Um, my name is Sava Bijovic. I am a translator. For those who aren't familiar with who I am, I'm a translator. I'm not really anything special. I will switch between using um, a webcam and presenting things on screen because I don't have the greatest setup as far as technology goes. I also have some physical books that I'll be reading from as well that I'll show. And I guess we're having some technical difficulties. Um, so I'll probably stay on camera just to go over the um, background of the alt right. I'm sure most of the people watching are probably familiar with what it is, but of course, have to give a background on it. So I think we should start off with the context for what led to the schism in the Russian Church over the years of 1656 and 1666. Best way of describing this would be going to the Stoglov Council, which was held, and I can pull it up real quick since I have notes, which just from note, I'm not going to pull from any complicated sources. If there is any sources that I'll be pulling from that are not necessarily common, I will note them. But for most part, at least for this introduction, I'll be just reading off of things that you can find on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia does have some decent sources. Some of them are Russian, but of course, translation programs have gone very good. So the Stoglev Synod, let me just see here, it's taking a second, was a council or sabor held in Moscow in 1551 with the participation of Tsar, sorry, computer is being slow, with Tsar Ivan IV, who is better known as Tsar Ivan Grozny, the Terrible, and Patriarch, or I think it was just Metropolitan Makarios, in the year 1551. Stoglav in Russian means 100 chapters. It was a series of 100 questions posed by Tsar Ivan IV for essentially how the church and the state should be run in cooperation. This was after the fall of the Church of Constantinople. Well, the Church of Constantinople still existed, but the Byzantine Empire. So there was a need for this. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Stoglav, but at this council, they accepted the 100 chapters. They called it the Stoglav, and it was the normal canon used by the Russian Orthodox Church. Later on, if we skip to the late 1500s and the early 1600s, there was a time in Russian history that is known as the Time of Troubles. Now, this was part of the larger Great Northern Wars, which there's plenty of good books about. There's quite a few. I'm not going to give any specific recommendations because some people might get upset with the ones I recommend, say that the Polish propaganda or whatnot is still a very controversial thing for some people in Russia. You know the types, the Vatnik crowd. But they're not, the Northern Wars and the Time of Troubles are not mutually the same thing. They are separate events, but there's a lot of overlap. Now, one thing that I think is worth noting is that, of course, they don't call it the Time of Troubles for no reason. This was after the Protestant Reformation. The Swedes became Protestant and they were ravaging the north of Russia. The Poles, of course, the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth had already existed for about 2 centuries by this point, and they were one of the main political powers in Eastern Europe. They were a very big threat to the nascent Russian Empire. And I think a lot of people forget this, but the Poles and the Roman Catholics had actually seen Russia as their main goal of conquest. They wanted to conquer Russia, and they got very close. For example, in the year 1606, the Poles supported a man who was claiming to be Saint Dmitry of Uglich, one of Tsar Ivan Grozny's children, who was murdered by an ambitious boyar. We recognize him as a saint in the Orthodox Church, but there was rumors that Saint Dimitri had escaped and survived, and there was the first of what they called the false Dimitris. There was 4 or 5 of them. We don't know much about most of them. We only know much about the first and second of the false Dimitris. The first and second false Dimitri married the same woman, who was a Polish noblewoman, and at one point the Poles were very close to conquering Moscow. They had conquered most of Russia, and it wasn't until the peasants Kuzma and Minin launched a rebellion in the city of Suzde that the Poles were kicked out of Russia with the help of Patriarch Saint Germuzhin. Now, all this is necessary because, like any time of tribulation, the Russian people got quite eschatological. There was a lot of, you know, fears about the end times, about the coming of the Antichrist, and a lot of that permeated much of what we'll talk about very soon here. There was one group founded in this called the Zealots of Piety, which they will become very important, which we talk about in Russian. It's Kruzhok Revolnoyetia Благочестия, which is like Old Russian. It was a circle of ecclesiastical and secular individuals. I'm reading from Wikipedia here, so this is not some arcane or obscure source. But that's
I
really
will. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I will occasionally pop in when there's a comment. I don't understand what this means. Tikon F says Alaskans can't be trusted, especially the Aleuts. I'm not
it's
sure
not
what that
even
means.
him. Not even him, because he is Aleutian. He must have gotten that
Oh,
from me.
okay.
But so the Zealots of Piety, this group really started to gain traction in the 1630s. Now it's time to get to the fun part, which is the actual reforms of Patriarch Nikon. So Nikon Pustaviat was, or no, that's the wrong one. That's a different person. Patriarch Nikon, where did I put this? I put this somewhere, didn't I? Ah, here we are. Patriarch Nikon was actually a part of the Zealots of Piety, which was like almost like a lay brotherhood. And he, of course, became the Patriarch of Moscow. Um, and he started really investigating a lot of the liturgical actions and the rubrics that were going on in Russia, and he found that a lot of it was incorrect. Now, there'll be one very important note that we bring about that, but this was during a very troubled time in Russian history. They were still trying to rebuild from the times of trouble and from the Northern Wars, and he decided to issue a series of, they're called reforms, but I think that's an incorrect term. Because if we go back to talking about the Stoglov had some interesting things about it. It claimed that the old right, which we'll talk a little bit about the old right after this, and what it actually is, because a lot of people don't understand what it is, seemingly, said that some of the Russian practices were the only correct practices. Now, the Stoglov Sobor was never accepted by Russian monks or monathos, namely at St. Panteleimons, and it was not accepted by most of the Orthodox world. The Melkite Patriarchate, at this time still Orthodox, and the Greek Patriarchates did not accept the Stoglov. In fact, no one outside of Russia did, and even then, not even all Russians accepted it. So Patriarch Nikon saw this divide between the practices of the rest of the Orthodox world and these practices of the Russian Orthodox world, and he wanted to standardize these practices. And also, it didn't help that a lot of the old rite was incorrect. A lot of it was based off of errors, things that were not correct, which we'll talk about that very briefly. And he introduced these reforms in the year 16 what was it, 1651? Let's see. 1653, yes. With 1653, he began the process of uh, changing the Russian divine service books to align with their contemporary Greek counterparts and change them within certain liturgical rituals. This comes from Krumny's Old Believers in a Changing World, Robert Krumny, which again you can find the IBSBN for that on uh, Wikipedia. Now, one thing I will note, which I think this will probably be around the time I will turn off my camera so I can actually share. Froze up on my end, so I don't know if I can even be seen here. Let's see. Okay, yes, sorry. I might turn off my camera around now so I can actually present things on screen. One thing I would like to show here, let me stop the camera, present, share. Let's see if it'll work. Okay, share screen. I don't know if this is working. Is this working? Now it's saying it's not working. Maybe I should pull this up.
I'm going to have to switch just a moment.
Well, for anyone, if they can hear me, my browser is saying that it's not responding, which I don't know what that's about.
Let me see if I can fix
I
this.
needed a
Give
little
me
bit of
a second.
time to prepare for the stream, and obviously I didn't do that properly.
All right, well, we'll try to fix
So
it.
forgive me. This might be a slower presentation than I thought. Trying to share my screen. My browser does not want to cooperate.
Give me just a moment. I'm going to try to see if I
My
switch.
internet's not going to cooperate either.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hello?
Let's see.
Hello?
I should have probably. Maybe I can set this thing up. I don't know if that's
Hold
working.
on, hold on.
Well, I apologize to everyone watching the stream. This will
Can you?
hopefully be resolved very soon. Maybe if I do this. Okay.
That okay? So they can apparently Sava can't hear me, but apparently the stream can. So what I'm gonna do is give me a second, Sava. I'm gonna try to switch off of the phone and onto the computer. Hopefully that makes a difference and makes the presentation easy. Give me just a second, okay?
Oh, here we go. I think I'm back. Hello.
You were always there.
Um, I think I'm back. Let me close some things real quick, and then okay. Am I back yet? Hello.
I hear you. We hear you.
Okay, I
Hold
think I'm
on.
back. Sorry.
No, no
So let
worries.
me close some things here. I'm having technical issues on my end.
Yep,
I
yep,
was
we
told,
all are.
Father, you were trying to ask me something.
No, I was just trying to tell you that I was gonna have to switch to the computer in the so that we can get the full StreamYard
Close this.
capabilities up. So hold on just one second. I'm
That's
on
not
the third
working
floor
either.
finally.
Okay. So I'm back. I don't know. I can't hear you, Father, if you're um,
Don't worry, we'll
trying to speak
we'll
to
get this
me.
all
I might
straightened
have
out in a
to
minute.
rejoin real quick
Okay, hold
because I can't hear you for some
on. Right,
reason.
it's
I
fine.
don't
You can
know.
do
It,
that if
it
you
says
want.
it's
Give me
working on
a
my
second.
end, but
I
uh,
understand.
yes, I'm going to try to rejoin real quick.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Um, Give me a second. All right, I'm here now. Now let me. Where's the other guy? Okay.